Welcome to my studio where today we are going to be painting this beautiful night sky. Now, this tutorial is great for beginners, and by the end of this video, you will have a stunning painting along with new skills and techniques to use with acrylic. Now let's jump right in and get started. The first step in our painting is to tone our canvas and give us a foundation to work from. So I am using a large square brush and I'm using burnt sienna straight out of the tube, and I'm going to apply a thin layer over the entire surface of my canvas. This is going to allow us to see the purples and the blues we're working with today a lot easier than if they were on a white canvas. Once that burnt sienna layer has completely dried, we can go ahead now and start to work on the fun part of our painting, and that's beginning our night sky. Now, to begin, I'm going to take phthalo blue and Mars black, and I'm going to create a very dark navy color for the top of my night sky. So with this painting, if you ever feel a little lost, just remember we're working from dark to light and top to bottom. So all of our dark colors are going to appear at the top, and then as we work our way down our canvas, we're slowly going to make them lighter in a gradient. Now, in order to make this gradient and make it lighter, we're going to add phthalo blue and titanium white to our color mixtures, and we're going to use more blue and more white the lighter our color gets. So we're going to do this in 2 or 3 stages. You're going to have a little bit lighter, and then a lot lighter down towards the center of the canvas. Now, it's important to remember with our gradient and with acrylic, acrylic does have a fast dry time. So you're seeing here that I'm really working in these colors as this paint is drying so that I can blend them in much more seamlessly. If I try to do this dry, it's really just going to create a layer over top and not mix in with the color that I want it to. Now, something to note as well, you may have noticed this color did adjust. I've added in some purple. Now, this is an optional step. You can keep making your sky lighter blue if you don't want to mix or buy a purple. Or if you'd like to follow this tutorial exactly as I'm creating it, I've added in purple, phthalo blue, and titanium white together to create this very soft purple color towards the bottom of my canvas. But it's entirely up to you. I say create what your heart desires and whatever you like the look of. As a little side note, once that purple had dried, I decided to come in with a little bit of violet and just bring in a slight pop of pink down towards the bottom, but this is also entirely optional, just something I decided to add. Now, this next step in the painting, I'm not going to lie to you, is usually the most intimidating. Even after all these years of painting, I still find myself a little apprehensive. So if you're feeling this way, know it's completely normal, and we're going to buckle in, we're going to lock in, and we're going to tackle this skill together. Now, in order to create the very misty, galaxy, aurora borealis type vibe in our night sky, we're going to take the oldest, crustiest paintbrush that you have, or a blender if you have one available, and we're going to mix phthalo blue and titanium white together, which is going to be much lighter than our original background color, and we're going to dry brush this color all across the center of our canvas. In order to create this effect, you're going to want to make sure of 2 things. Number 1, that your background is completely dry so that colors are not mixing together. And number 2, that your brush is completely dry except for a little small amount of paint. So I'm going to be using this dry brushing with my blue mixture, as well as I've added in some purple towards the bottom. You can see that I'm kind of using my brush in an up and down motion rather than across or in a brush stroke. So this is very similar to like a makeup brush. I am just patting this brush with very dry bristles all along the area that I want this effect with very little brush pressure. I'm being very gentle with this to create that very soft mist. Once that misty area has completely dried, we can go ahead now and start to work on the stars in our night sky. Now, I am using one of the oldest tricks in the book, and that is to use an old toothbrush and some watered down white paint. And we're going to basically have some fun, get a little messy, and we're going to splatter these stars all over our canvas. Now, a little trick that I found helpful as I was working through this was to have varying distance between your hand, your toothbrush, and the canvas. So you might try some stars from really far up, and those are going to be very light, very small, and very distanced. Or the closer you bring that toothbrush to your canvas, you're going to have a much more concentrated, brighter area of stars. So kind of have fun with this, play around, see what works for you, but I like to have a little bit of variation, and I found both were really effective. Now, while I've been blabbing here about toothbrushes and stars, what I'm doing is I'm coming in with my Molotow acrylic pump marker in fine point white, and I'm just going in and adding in larger, more concentrated stars in the location of my choosing. So with the toothbrush, we only have so much control. A lot of it is random, and so there are some times where I want to add in my own stars. Maybe there's an area that kind of was missed by the toothbrush, and I'm coming in and just adding in a little bit of that detail myself. We are nearing the end of our project here, and that means the final stage is to add in the silhouette of our tree line. Now I'm going to create the tree line with two brushes. I'm going to use a larger round brush for the majority of the heavy lifting, so all of the coverage of my tree base or the larger trees, and then I'm going to use a smaller brush for the finer details, so any of the tinier trees in the area or maybe some of the leaves or branches, I'm going to use the smaller brush. Both of these brushes are going to be covered in Mars Black paint. I'm using Mars Black straight out of the tube. I know sometimes you may have heard that you don't ever use black paint. It's entirely up to you and what you have available. If you want to mix your own, you absolutely can, or just use it out of the tube. Art is art. Make what makes you happy. All right. I recommend for this section that you plan out your tree line. So you'll notice as I'm creating these lines here, they are not all vertical, perfectly up and down. You can see that I'm kind of angling them towards this sort of Milky Way Aurora Borealis fog, and they're kind of all pointed inwards. This is actually following the reference that I chose. The camera or the perspective, the lens, kind of had this almost like a fisheye effect where all of these trees were kind of pointing inwards. So I wanted to replicate that in my painting, and that's why those lines are going to be slightly tilted and not perfectly up and down. Once again, you can create whatever you prefer in your own painting. So if you prefer to have something a little bit more vertical, like you're kind of facing these trees head on, you can absolutely do that as well. Now, a trick behind, I've been talking so much, my voice is dying. A trick to painting trees, and this is something that I still continue to use to this day, is to allow my round brush to do the majority of the work for me. So the shape of the round brush naturally is very effective for this, as it allows you to create a very fine point at the tip of your brush, but also allows for a wider brush stroke towards sort of the center of the tree that is all covered. So you're going to see that I apply more pressure around the line that I've painted in, which is my tree trunk. I use much more pressure towards the center. And as I go out on the left and the right side of these trees, I'm kind of letting go of that pressure a little bit. I'm easing off the canvas, and I'm allowing the brush to go to a very fine point. And these are going to be the leaves or the branches of these trees that are not as compact or as dense. And that's why they're going to be very visible. They're kind of very sporadic. They don't have to be perfect. This is a silhouette, so it's not as though we are painting a very, very up close view of a tree. We're only giving the viewer a general idea. So go ahead and have fun with this. This pretty much comes with practice and really just going a little crazy and seeing what comes out. You're going to see here that the base of all of my trees are pretty much just solid black, so you really only have to worry about that effect towards the top of our trees, and the rest are kind of blending together in a dense forest. All right, now let's take a look at our final night sky painting. As always, a big shout out to our Patreon members. Thank you so much for your support. If you yourself want to join Patreon, you can check out the link in the description box below. And of course, last but not least, a big shout out and thank you to our channel sponsors, Chartpack, Grumbacker, and Molotov for sponsoring today's video. Their links can be found in the description box below. Want to do some more painting? Check out this video next.